Welcome everyone in our first artist talk as a part of Shame Shouldn't Be a Symptom exhibition that we prepared in collaboration with the Made of Millions Foundation as a participation in Mental Health Awareness Month. And for this first artist talk, our guest is artist Peter Pflügler. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And Peter's work is part of a virtual part of the exhibition that you can access anytime through the link in our bio on Instagram or on our Facebook channels or through our website. And Peter is a visual storyteller currently living in the Netherlands, and with his work he is mainly exploring the dynamics of secrets and transgenerational trauma. With the use of moving image, photography, and performance, he focuses on personal stories in order to highlight universal issues. He sees the body as a storying and expressive medium and experiments with his own communicative rage and speechlessness. His work has been shown in national and international exhibitions, most recently in Der Greif, Stedin Museum, and the World Student Biennale in Novi Sad. Peter is currently finishing his studies of photography at the Royal Academy of Art in Hague. So again, welcome Peter, and thank you first of all for applying for this exhibition, as it's a group show built through open call. So thanks all the artists who submitted their artworks. And today we will be talking about family secrets and intergenerational trauma as main topic of your art research and art practice. But can you, in the beginning, tell us something more about what transgenerational trauma is and how does it work, and like some basics for people to maybe get into what we are going to talk about today?
Yes, of course. Just before I start, I have a technical question because I was provided with the YouTube streaming link, and now I'm just testing it, and I'm not sure if it's actually working. So if we are really streaming live, can we maybe have a heads up?
Yes, we are for sure live. It's just sometimes there is a change of a link needed, but I'm sure that Justina is working on it if it's not happening. Here is maybe a new link if it's okay.
Okay. So this is a okay. I'm sorry. Can you give me then just 1 minute, because then I posted a different link. I will just update it very fast.
Okay, no worries.
Moment. Because otherwise, let me just see. Otherwise, people cannot reach.
Yes, so meanwhile, you can see Peter's work if you look into our Mozilla Hub room that was created for this exhibition. But maybe we will also show some excerpt of the video during this artist talk. And also, whoever is watching, if you already have some questions, or if you have questions meantime, you can always write into the comment section on YouTube, and we will try to get to it as soon as possible. And of course, the artist talk will be accessible also after today, like on our YouTube channel for later use.
Just 1 second, I'm almost done, because now people are texting me that it doesn't work. I just updated it on my Instagram, and then I will just send it in the group. All right, I'm back. Sorry. So
No worries. Okay, so maybe we can get back to the topic. If you could,
yeah.
say something more about the theory behind the transgenerational trauma, what it actually is, and how the transmission works, and like how to imagine what we are going to talk about.
Yes, of course. I think when we talk about a trans or intergenerational trauma, it starts already with the problem of the difficulty of defining trauma itself. So I think it's also important to kind of look a little bit into what a trauma is, because like one of the most important aspects of trauma is that it kind of exceeds our reality. So it's not possible to integrate a traumatic event into our personal system, into our narrative. So this kind of let's say the traumatic event needs to be so overwhelming in a way that us as the body, but also the mind, is kind of locking it out. It's not possible to integrate. But as an effect of that, it will then recome all the time, not as a kind of memory, which has a kind of closed feeling, right? When we remember something, we understand that it's in the past, but it kind of surfaces again, and it's basically relived. So a trauma is kind of let's say a disorder of time and memory, and there the transgenerational trauma comes then in, because the theory is that this traumatic event does not necessarily need to be lived by yourself. So I can get a trauma by my ancestors. I can receive a trauma by my parents, by my grandparents. New studies even show that it goes over 5 generations, more even. So it's still a field which is quite young, but there is extensive studies going on, and also additional to that, it's quite broad field. So there is not, when we talk about intergenerational trauma, it's not easy to define what helps for this trauma, so what supports this trauma transfer. There are genetic aspects. There's the field of epigenetic, which basically says that through a traumatic event, our DNA is in a way not changed, but like it's kind of colored in a way. So the proteins on the DNA changes, and then this can also be passed to the next generation. But then also there are different theories that especially when we are even before when we are born, that there is already something put into our system, and in the first years of after birth, because we as babies, we kind of mimic our parents. We echo everything that we get, and the theory is that when a parent is traumatized, they are kind of like unmimicable aspects. They are kind of not understandable for the baby, and this is also what helps in this transmission. It's very many things you see, but they're like, in a nutshell, I would say this is transgenerational trauma. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe we should talk first a bit about your artwork, about the story behind your artwork, so people know why we are actually talking about the intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, very good. So I'm a photographer. So my practice is mostly with lens-based. So I mostly do photography, but I also have a background as a dancer and performer. So the body is very close to me, and I would say that now I'm at the moment finishing my studies of photography in the Netherlands, and this is also part of my graduation project, which is shown in the exhibition. And I kind of, in my practice, I marry now a little bit photography, video, and performance. The story behind my project, or why I'm so interested in this topic in general, is comes from personal experience. So there is a big family secret in my family. It was there for forever. And it deals it has to do with a suicidal attempt of my father when I was a small child. So I was 2.5 years old. And my father went into the woods, deciding to never come back. Then, thankfully, he did come back, and this kind of traumatic event was then kept a secret for 20 years. So I only found out when I was 21. And the interesting story behind this is that so I was 2.5 years old when this happened, but then I grew up with 3 siblings with 2 great parents in a very loving surroundings. So I had a beautiful childhood. Everything was actually great, very loving and comforting. But then when I came into puberty, then grew a little bit older, some strange things happened, and I kind of, a big grief fell on top of me. So I experienced a grief that I could not put into any meaning. It was just suddenly there, and this grief was so intense that it's grief is also, I cannot even find a word for that. It's just kind of like, I call it now grief because I know the story, but there it was really impossible for me to locate and to understand. And then this kind of, it became stronger and stronger, and I was suffering a lot because I could not understand. I had all this guilt. Why am I feeling this way? I'm not allowed. I have such a beautiful family. I started hurting myself. My parents then helped me, and we went. So I went into therapy, but there's this interesting duality of them trying to help me, but keeping still the secret. And then for years I was trying to get behind this feeling and what's wrong with me. And then when I finally found out, this was basically like a huge relief. This moment when you understand where things are coming from, what's in your backpack. This really helped me to finally be able to I don't know, I think healing is always a difficult word, but to kind of to again create a narrative around all these feelings inside and all the stories that I finally knew. Yeah, so that is what my project in the end is about. It's about silence and how kind of a family secret can influence the next generation enormously, and that silence is not a passive thing at all. Like it's very active. It works on all edges. It's just not seen. But so one can decide to keep a secret, but then they cannot decide the consequences. And to actually, after this long talk, answer your question, for this exhibition, I created this video performance where I filmed myself trembling in the woods, because the trauma is such a physical aspect, and it's stored in the body. And I use this and try to make it visible. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we will get to this physicality and this like trembling techniques and how this all work like on a movement level a bit later. But let's talk first about the more theoretical aspect, and especially what leads to this type of trauma, because this term of like transgenerational transmission is most commonly mentioned with more like social and political phenomena, and especially with like Holocaust survivals, or as post-traumatic slave syndrome in African American community in the USA. But for you, it's more like it's more like a story of one family. But on the other hand, this idea of keeping the secrets is a very cultural thing in general, and it's present in I think very many families, and it is a very toxic thing. Let's be honest about this. And sometimes it's even like it can work, as in your case, as creating this like trauma about not speaking about things, but it can also like enable even abusive behavior, which is like we don't speak out loud, and we don't talk what is actually happening in the home, while talking about what is actually happening would be the thing that would like help us to like break these cycles. So I wanted to ask, like, because we are talking about mental health awareness, do you think that this like keeping the secret of what happened was more influenced by this like overall cultural thing of like keeping things as a secret in a family, or was it like really based on this stigma concerning the suicide topic especially?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tough question. In that sense, tough in that sense that it's that I asked that my parents, because I'm very curious. Like I really want to understand why, especially after I kind of, you know, there was a scream of help. Like there were certain moments where they could really have told me already way earlier, and not with 21. So I actually asked them, and there is this interesting inability of explaining. Like there's a strong wish of kind of keeping it away. So by not speaking about it, it's gone, this idea. And it's a very childish idea, but it's really it keeps people you know, it reaffirms them in their decision. It's like when not talking about this, it doesn't have an influence, even though they already see it. But I think to answer your question, it is extremely rooted in our society and in our history, and especially in Austria. So my story, my personal story is it is very personal. So it's a family story. You mentioned, you know, the Holocaust. You mentioned slavery. There's basically all colonialistic histories are full of this trauma transfer. So they're this like huge society cultural transmissions. My story is tiny, but when I look kind of to the next generations, you know, it doesn't. I arrive quite fast Second World War, and I don't know what happened there. So this is kind of like a very closed. There is no information. So I think these two things are interconnected. So when we always say when we compare kind of cultural transfer, cultural trauma, and then small stories in family, it's not possible to totally take them apart. So they are definitely linked. And then Austria is quite an interesting case, because Austria, after the Second World War, you know, there's a lot talked about the trauma of the victim, obviously, and it's needed. And one of the kind of one of the clear aspects of trauma is that it needs repetition. So you need to constantly talk about it and remind you and put it into this narrative again. So that's also why I'm totally agree that we should never ever stop really talking about the Second World War, repeating the stories all the time, really bring it up. But Austria is in that sense interesting that kept really, really quiet about the role of the perpetrator. So there was this kind of thankfully in the story of the world, Germany took most of the blame in a way. So it was kind of the Austria is very interesting in that sense, because I think we really kept this secretiveness and stayed more quiet than everyone, because we didn't want to face the fact of our guilt and what happened. So I think that so many stories in Austria are the information is lost because people didn't talk about it. So the generation is not here anymore who knew about what happened and who experienced their trauma themselves and the trauma they caused to others. But they didn't give the information to the next generation. They simply transferred the trauma. So suddenly we are in this difficult situation of not knowing, but still wearing this luggage. So I agree with you that this cultural habit of not speaking about the dark spots in the family, this is what we need to break, and this is what I also want to do with my work. It's like I'm in a way in a privileged situation, because my trauma is packed in love. You know, it's very to make work about trauma is really difficult, and I sometimes it's not, you cannot even talk about it. So how are you going to make work about it? And for me, I had this luck that now after I found out, and I'm in such a loving environment, family, I was able to kind of a little bit look at it and step back and make work about it. But many people don't have this kind of security. So I really think that in order to heal more, or to be able to understand more where we're coming from and what we carry, yeah, we need to speak up. It's maybe as simple as that.
And talking about like other people having the options to like have this space and to deal with it or not, like considering all the like history of humanity, is like I think basically like not even possible to find someone who doesn't carry at least partial ancestor trauma, like even like multiple ones combined. And it like has a serious symptoms that we might not be aware of, that are like tied to this kind of topic. But like, is there even a way how to get it diagnosed, or like how to like what is the traditional treatment or like approach toward like to get professional help, for example?
It's we live in a society where we need to understand everything with our brains. So now the first thing, I have a problem, so what am I going to do? First of all, I ignore it as long as possible. Then there's this moment where I cannot ignore it anymore. What shall I do? Maybe seek help, and maybe finally I will arrive at a therapist, and this therapist will be most probably conversation based, right? So the thing is, now I'm sitting in a conversation based therapy. I did it for 4 years, trying to find something out which I cannot even say out loud because I don't have the information about it. So it's a very good question. So how can I heal from something, or work on something where I probably don't even know the whole spectrum of it? So I had an interesting journey there, because in my artistic process, I started with this like really concrete idea that this project is not a therapy for myself. So I really wanted it to be a kind of investigation from the outside, looking at something, and then I can share it to the world, but it's, with a safe distance. And then I, through my research, and especially through my theoretical research, and when I found out about all these the mechanism of trauma, I came across the fact that every trauma is stored in the body. It's there. So even if you don't know the origin, it's still, the information is still inside the body, and this is what you were asking about, how to work on it, how to get it diagnosed, or whatever you want to call it. There's the field of the somatic therapy, which basically takes the body as the center of everything. So the body knows, and this is now, it's getting more and more let's say accepted, because we all know how our system works. Something new comes up, there are not enough studies, like everyone says it's esoteric. I looked at it first, and even the kind of the the visuals that the somatic therapists use on the websites speak esoteric for me. So I came across it a few years ago, and I stopped because I didn't want to touch this field. But then at the end, it arrived to me, and I looked in all these theories, and in a nutshell, when you're faced with a trauma, normally, so when you're faced with a threat, you have this kind of fight, flight, and freeze. And in a trauma, you will always freeze, because it's too overwhelming. You cannot run away, you cannot fight it, you will freeze. And then all the somatic therapists, the Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. These are the kind of Bibles of these theories. They say that then normally, for example, animals, when they face this threat and they freeze, after the danger is gone, they would like shake it off and tremble and run away, and kind of like give the body the possibility to get rid of this trauma. And we all know this moment when we have a shock. I don't know, it's an accident, or something really happens to us, and then we freeze. And then it's very important to let this out of the system, because in that moment it's there. And then when I don't cry or tremble, scream, moan, whatever the body asks for, then it will stay there. It will be in the body. And in the somatic therapy, this is the same happens in the transgenerational trauma. So also it comes in doses, right? So before birth, during the pregnancy, in the first year. So like small things, and they add up, and they are all stored in the body. And for me, I then came across this article of a technique which is called TRE, tension release exercise. And there, it was actually designed in America for soldiers after the war, and it's very simple exercise of 7 easy movements or positions that you bring your body into, and they bring your body into a kind of state of natural trembling. It's just like you maybe lift your hip or whatever, and then you start trembling. And then when you keep on doing this, your body kind of uses this energy to finally get rid of the trauma, and you can start react quite strong to that. And this is what happened to me. So I tried this exercise, and I trembled for a whole day. Like I was in The Hague, and I couldn't stop. And with trembling, I mean, like, this is it was not simply trembling. The ones who watched my video in the exhibition, they can understand what I mean. So that the whole body tries to makes movements that I'm not aware of. These are not controlled things. And this is, for example, a possibility to locate or to let the body speak finally again. If my brain doesn't know it, my unconsciousness knows, my body knows, and maybe I can learn to let the body express itself. Because we always also in this, when after we are in a traumatic event or something, we learn so much to keep quiet. It's not socially accepted to scream and cry and do whatever is necessary. But I think these kind of things, we should learn and practice them again, and this could help us. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, like for the healing itself, the knowledge of the trauma is not necessary.
It's helpful.
It's helpful for sure, but like
it's very helpful. But it's. I think it's. No, it's not. I mean, it's not necessary in a way if you can manage to really connect to the sources and to your body, and then let it out. Yeah, it can be possible that you don't suffer from it that much anymore. Yeah, totally.
But when we are talking about this like transmission of the trauma, because one thing is this like prenatal malnutrition and DNA damage, but then also in your case, because the traumatic event happened when you were already 2.5 years, so basically these things were not so present in itself. It's more about like behavior, and especially like your surroundings, the way when the trauma is known is more in how people like treat the child, for example, and sometimes can like really traumatize the child by like talking about the traumatic event, but it comes out of like their own untreated trauma that they didn't process their own trauma. But was it like that in your case? Like, because on one hand we talked that it was a secret and nobody would like talk about it, but we know that silence can be very loud. But so how is it? So it had to be like present somehow in the behavior of the family members, even though you said that it was like very loving and caring. But even like to not talk about something, it is an active approach to like hiding is an activity basically. So how is that representing? Because many times people think that they are doing something good for the child when they are not talking about it and are not realizing that they are actually like still presenting the behavior and like really traumatizing the child. So maybe if you could give us like some examples of what you experienced.
Yeah. So for example, when when all this started for me, I was drawn to the woods. I would always go into the woods to a certain spot. There's it's a red cross, very Austrian. Jesus is hanging there, and I would always go there when I felt this feeling. And my sister the same. She's 1 year older than me. And it's kind of like it's this magical place, which is at the same time hurtful, but also feeling that it would help. And it's the place where this happened. So my father went there to finish his life, but he never told us. So there's this. This is a trace that I could never, completely understand how this happened. It's just like we both went there, and all the time. Even more, let's say, weird or creepy is in a sense how I found out about the secret finally, because I was 21. I already had moved out of my parents' home. I was living in Vienna. I was having a good career as a dancer, and I kind of was. Yeah, I was feeling well. I finished my therapy. I felt better, and then suddenly on one day it struck me, like how, where you think like, how is this possible? Like it's the same feeling. It's as if I would be 15 again, and it's staring me down, and I don't know what to do. And suddenly it's there, and I called my parents. I said like, I need to understand what the hell is going on. I'm coming home, and I went there, and then my father was already asleep, and my mom woke him up, and then I will never forget, he opens the door in his pajamas, and he's looking at me and he's smiling, and then he asks me, "Do you want to congratulate me to my second birthday?" So what happened is that this day was the anniversary of the suicidal attempt that he did. So from all the days, from 365 days, this kind of wave of this feeling came over to me without me knowing what happened. And me like asking my parents finally what's going on this one day. Yeah. So is it a coincidence? I don't believe so. So there is a kind of and then, of course, my explanation can only be that every year around this time, my father became into, he was reminded of what had happened. So every year, this on this 14th of November, this was his kind of day. And so of course, I cannot understand and reconstruct what exactly happened. But if I just imagine this moment of my father coming back from the woods after he took some sleeping pills and tried to open his wrists and then fell asleep, but then woke up again and it was not deep enough. So he came back after this, standing in front of my mom with her having 3 kids, 3, 2, and a newborn. So then they decide to keep this a secret. The atmospheres, they cannot hide. So I don't have concrete examples because the as I said, like it was always loving. So I don't know exactly. I cannot recall that my father was always sad at a certain day, for example. No, it's just like this all must have happened unconsciously, like small changes in the way he behaved, or my mom looked at us when we were kids, or this my mom's shock when she saw me as a 16-year-old hurting myself on the arm. It's also mirroring. From all the things I decided to do to scream for help is to cut my underarm. How much must it have kind of reflected in my mom? So yeah, so I think that these things, and as I said already before, I'm in this kind of loving environment. So how much cruel can it even be if this is used in a very no, let's state it differently. So in my case, I think my case is really a good example of how the actual silence made things worse. Because if my parents would have just decided to tell me, I could have, dealt with this better. So it's as simple as that. So I really think that in my case, it's very clear that the secretness, the silentness of this made it so much worse because I could just not the hell understand what's going on.
And to get back to the topic of the exhibition and also this talk, like, do you think that the reason for the silence was like about this topic of shame directly, for example, or was it maybe because like with the stigma surrounding mental health is that not only that we are ashamed of the symptoms, but we lack the communication tools, we lack the tools to treat ourselves better, to seek help. So it's like sometimes we are silent because we don't know how to talk.
Yeah.
What do you think would be a solution maybe for people, or like how? Like, do you think if like the awareness about the mental health would be better, or if there wouldn't be such a stigma surrounding it, that it would be different?
Yes. This is one thing for sure. So this is for me kind of like an easy quotation. So the moment we are more able to talk about these issues and about mental health in general, and and destigmatizing it, obviously we will have a better discourse and it will be a little bit more open. But this is also, I believe that, you know, a lot of things can change in one generation, and this is how I see my role as well. For example, my father was told by a psychologist of my school when I was 16 years old that they cannot put this weight of this story on top of me. So a psychologist at that time told them not to tell me. So I really think that that this nowadays probably and hopefully would not happen that way. And the same with now the role of me, or I see it in my sister. My sister now has two lovely kids, and it was interesting because now I finished my project while my nephew was the same age as I was when this happened. So he was 2.5 and now 3 years old. And seeing how, with what kind of easiness my sister is telling him what's going on with Corona, you know, and complex things, or when she feels bad, like explaining why. Of course, you know, you can speak to a to a child in many ways, and can talk about everything basically. So I see already that there, you know, there's a big responsibility as the next generation to understand that we are the start of a new cycle. So in every this kind of moments where there starts something new, for me there lies this magic of doing something differently, of kind of changing again in a small scale of a family, but then this will affect obviously also the society and the culture. So yeah, so that's why I, for example, now understood, okay, I was a bit hiding of this therapeutical way, and then I also asked myself why. So why was I so eager not to call this a therapeutical project? Why was I so eager not to be put into a kind of corner of oh wow, he has a trauma, you know, there's depression involved, there's kind of like whatever. So I was faced with this, like, and I also understood that no, this is my responsibility. I'm sharing my story. I'm very open about it. I'm lucky because I was able to really work on this already for years. So not artistically, but like also therapeutically. And then on additionally, I did an artistic work which again became therapeutic. So I can I'm privileged in that sense, but I can but it's also important for me to share the whole story and to show that. So also decided for my graduation project, which, as I said, it will be a book. It will be it will consist photographs, text, and video. And for me, it was extremely important that I give away the story, because there are so many work about trauma out there where the context is not given, and I understand why, because maybe it's too early, or it's not possible to name it, and it's totally fine. But for me, being a little bit on a different road, I understood, no, I want to share that. Like maybe someone not maybe, for sure, many people have kind of suicidal histories in their family, or not even. It's not a project about suicide. It's a project about family secrets. So family secret has everyone. So that's why, yeah. Now I got a little bit off road. I don't know what was the question, but yeah, that's why I think it's important, yeah, for the next generation to fight a little bit against this learned behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, but this I think this topic also shows the like how interconnected we actually are as people, and there is this question coming a bit about like people need to be like not comfortable, but willing to go through the discomfort of sharing their personal stories. And with this transgenerational trauma, it's a bit tricky in a way that you are sharing a story that about something that didn't happen to you, but at the same time impacted you in such a enormous way that it became your story. And now the question is about like I would be interested in like what is your family's opinion on your work and on such a like very open sharing of somebody else's like very personal story.
Yeah, I think that after the secret was unraveled, there was a long period of silence again. This was quite interesting, but this silence was made by me. So I found out, but then I never learned how to talk about this. So my parents told me you can always ask me, ask us, but I didn't. So there was this really quite long period where I didn't face them with this. And then I started working on it, and there were quite lovely situations because my parents, they I think this is, maybe they would say it in a different way, but I think it's kind of like they are very, very open and very happy for me that I do this. And they let me do everything. So I was allowed to photograph them. I was allowed to use documents, diaries, whatever. And I personally feel that this is a kind of also a bit coming from a place of guilt. And I'm not sure. Sometimes, of course, I'm questioning my my practice and hoping that I'm not overstepping any boundaries, because I'm hoping I'm not taking advantage of it. But I'm very careful and asking myself these questions all the time. So actually, they are very proud. They are happy that I can kind of cope and use this story, and they are very they are fine with me sharing. But I think it's this idea of uh, they don't need to speak about it, I'm doing it for them. So it's again my story. So it's an interesting dynamic there, and they will also come to my graduation show, and I'm quite curious because this is then finally this moment where let's say I share the final the whole, I share the whole context, everything that I did, and I'm presenting it publicly. And in this public presenting, they will also come and visit it. And yeah, I'm curious about this. But I can actually only say good things about this, that through my research and through me creating work about this topic, in the end, I came closer to them, and to also be able to a little bit express the anger, because there's also kind of blaming. So come on, why the hell didn't you tell me a few years early at least? Not necessarily with 8 or 3, maybe with 16 when there were these moments. So why the hell did you not tell me? So to give this anger also a bit of a room, and this blaming. But at the end, it became a cooperation. And I'm showing this video of me trembling in the woods, but then after that, I made a video where my mom is holding me. I decided I want to close the cycle. My mom was the big gatekeeper, so she really wanted to keep the secret. My father would have wanted to tell us earlier, but she really wanted to keep it. And I decided, yeah, I want to tremble in this way, in her arms, show her what's inside my body. And it was a beautiful experience. It brought us together. also during COVID, you know, you suddenly start to you don't hug your family anymore after some time because you're so used of, you know, like body contact is so gone. And they're like lying in the lap of my mom, trembling like crazy. It was a really beautiful experience that brought us together. Yeah.
This
And I hope that it can also help her and them, you know, in a way, maybe.
yeah. This answered already one of my questions. I wanted to ask you if this technique can be used as a collective therapy, like as a family therapy tool that could be
Yeah.
embraced like at the same time, or if it's like the solitude is somehow like important, but it seems like it can work on like both ways.
Yeah, also this trembling technique, if someone is interested, just look it up, TRE. It's becoming quite popular because it's also you know, it's not only used for making, also for releasing trauma. It's basically designed to release any form of blockades in your body. So it also becomes now big in kind of yoga practice and practices and something. And don't be afraid that if you do it, you will tremble like me. Maybe it will happen, I don't know. But in a way, this is not the normal reaction, this crazy thing that I'm doing there. So basically, I would encourage everyone to try it. It's a beautiful experience, and basically, it was designed for groups. So the soldiers were all lying on the floor and all together, because this kind of, you know, when you see someone else trembling, you're also more likely to start trembling. So you're kind of mirroring, and it can be. I tried, you know, with my siblings already, and I'm trying to spread this a bit because it's a nice experience. It's a nice technique, and everyone can just. It's also designed for to do it on yourself, so you don't need to be guided. It's not, you don't need a therapist. Of course, there are now many who offer it for a lot of money, but the guy who started it, it's his goal was to create a technique which is so easy and so simple and so effectful that you can just do it on yourself whenever you feel like it. And now, whenever my pressure of graduation, of a recent breakup, of whatever is on my mind and on my body, if it becomes too much, then I just lay down and I start trembling a bit, and it helps.
Okay, and now because soon the project will be wrapped up, and what is your plan after that, like artistically?
Yeah, so there are kind of two things that I really want to go into. One thing is theoretically and research, and it's maybe the base of a next long-term project, and it's exactly the, let's say, the transgenerational trauma of Austria. It's quite big, but I want to go into this. Like I posted this question: if we draw the family tree of sorrow, where do its roots begin? And yes, my story is very personal, and it stops basically at my parents, but I'm sure its roots go way further. And I want to fight a little bit the silence of the culture of Austria. This really, that we all agree on this kind of not talking about what had happened, and yeah. So this is one thing that I really want to look into, and I have no idea what kind of project or whatever. So this is just something that this is my interest. So basically uh, the same topic, but in a broader scale. And the second thing is indeed the relation of trauma and silence to the body. So I want to use my kind of my background as a, let's say, as a mover, as a performer, or as like, I know I'm very connected to my physical self, and I want to explore how I can use my body in my artistic practice more.
And does your work have some kind of ambition to go into this like art therapy spectrum more, to like develop maybe some kind of procedure or approach that could be like used by others?
That's a good question, because I didn't ask myself that yet, but I will incorporate this in my thoughts now, because I actually my plan was to actually look also into, because I'm talking about these therapies and I'm reading about them, but actually I never did them. So I only did kind of conversation-based therapy, but there are, as I said before, like way more. Like I want to look into this kind of somatic therapy and just try it on myself and do that. So I want to also to look into this therapeutical effect. But yeah, maybe in the end I will develop my own thing. We'll see.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the talk. I think you answered all the asked and also not asked questions in your answers. So I think we don't have questions like from the viewers. But if someone has a question, now is the time. Now is the time to ask. Otherwise, we would also like finish. I think it was a very nice hour. So thank you very much again for your time and participation in the exhibition.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks everyone who was watching. And we will have another artist talk next week on Wednesday with another featured artist, Mariana Rebola. So you will find all the information on our social media channels, on Instagram, Facebook, but also on our website. And the gallery space will be open until 9th of June, always Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 to 7 p.m. And the virtual part of the exhibition is accessible basically nonstop. So look into it and see you next week.
Thank you very much.